Hello there, this is Nanto. With a series as popular as Fist of the North Star, there were bound to be people interested in exploring its massive world and numerous side characters. And in the early 2000s, with the success of the prequel series Fist of the Blue Sky, a few authors took to publishing a number of spin-offs starring the various side characters Kenshiro meets. These would be known as the Gaidens. The one we will be talking about now is Sokoku no Garo, or Rei Gaiden, though I may make more videos on the other Gaidens in the future. Written by Yasuyuki Nekoi, this is a prequel series set before Rei meets Kenshiro, and is a great read for any fan of the original Jobro, Hokuto, or maybe Nanbro. I'll try to avoid heavy spoilers, but I still recommend reading or watching Fist of the North Star first. Before we get into the main story, I have to mention an earlier short story spanning 2 chapters. The first serving as a reintroduction to Rei's character, and the second being about Rei facing off against a former student of Nanto Suichoken, Karen, who now serves under Rao, taking place while Kenshiro was hunting down Jagi. The first is not too noteworthy in terms of story, and is more of a brief refresher on Rei's character, while the second one is more interesting due to the inclusion of Karen. So I recommend reading these either before or after the main Rei Gaiden story, and with that, now on to the actual manga. Now, I really enjoyed Rei Gaiden. It pretty much nails Rei's character at this point in his journey. Rei is currently searching for his sister, Ivy, allying with and betraying gangs just to survive long enough to find her. And while searching for food, he runs into probably the smartest gang in the series, who decide to run away from the martial artist that can kill someone with just their fingers. This is when they run into best character Yu. While escaping from Rei, the bandits think it's a great idea to also attempt to capture the girl in front of them, but it's a trap! This encounter serves as the explanation for how Rei got the idea of cross-dressing to lure in bandits who would otherwise run. After saving Yu, Rei agrees to let them observe his Nanto Suichoken in exchange for guiding him to Asgasul, the city of women, in order to find Ivy. When they get there, we are introduced to the main setting of this spin-off, Asgasul, ruled by the Queen Eva and protected by her Valkyries. Asgasul has a red light district look and is notably a better place to live in than the rest of the world. Yu initially tries to sell Rei as a guard for the city, however he soon attracts the attention of the Valkyries and their leader Frida after getting into a fight. They were impressed with Rei and give him the opportunity to sleep with any of them. But being the Giga Chad that he is, Rei chose Queen Eva. And of course, Eva immediately enters, since who wouldn't want to sleep with Rei, and invites him to her palace. After spending a night with her, Rei wakes up to find that Eva has been killed, with a scar on her back caused by a Nanto Seiken technique. The Valkyries walk in and immediately accuse Rei, surrounding him and attacking, only for him to rip apart their clothes, which won't be the last time this happens. However, while escaping, Rei gets slashed with a poisoned knife and falls unconscious while actually falling. We then cut to a flashback where we see a young Rei doing a Record of Ragnarok Buddha cosplay while training. This is when we get introduced proper to the average Rei fan, young Karen. She has a pretty cute design and mainly serves a Rin type role here, and there's a sense of tragedy considering what happens in the future to her. We also get to see a young Sue and Yuda here, finally allowing us to see Sue interact with Rei after all this time. Though I'm not a fan of his design here, which is a shame since Yuda and the other main series characters all look great. Yuda acts tsundere around Rei and also starts badmouthing Sue, which sets Rei off. But before the two can fight, current Nanto Suichoken masters Bofu and his wife Rinrei interrupts the two. Bofu then instructs Rei to attempt the Cliff of Darkness trial in order to complete his training. However, Yuda was still salty and so employs a dripped out amoeba to interrupt Rei's training on the 6th day of his trial. It succeeds and he falls down into the abyss and gets knocked out for some time, in the middle of his current unconscious state. We also get to see him hallucinate his mom, who turns out to be Bayonetta, but he awakens to see Lady Rinrei instead. We don't get to see her a whole lot in this, but I really enjoyed her trolly personality. She decided to marry her rival instead of becoming the next successor of Nanto Suichoken. She reveals to Rei about Nanto Suichoken's more graceful side, which he took note of in order to improve his current abilities. Using Rinrei's techniques, he was able to finesse Amoeba when next they met, turn Yuda gay, and even impress Rofu, who recognizes him as the successor to Nanto Suichoken. Rei reawakens in the present and sees Yu in yet another disguise. They had found a way for Rei to get around the city despite being a fugitive by joining up with a gang led by Zan. Zan is a practitioner of Nanto Kojaku-ken who wants to take control of the city. He's not really all too interesting as a character and is the most forgettable one here. After joining up with him, Zan and his men then begin an attack on the city, which results in the Valkyries being captured and imprisoned by Rei, and with ease to boot. While captured, the unsavory men in Zan's group attempt to take advantage of the unconscious Valkyries when a mysterious figure prevents them from being assaulted. Meanwhile, Rei saves Yu by stripping a guy naked and turning him into a pig. Rei and Yu then meet up with the recovered Valkyries to inform them that they will search for Ava's true killer while posing for their album cover, and it is revealed that the city was under the influence of Rei's old master Rofu. We also get to see Shin, Yuria, and his men, who all look quite faithful to their canon counterpart. We can also learn from this that this takes place sometime before Kenshiro defeats Seed. Shin, while initially eager to invade Asgarsul after learning of the Valkyries' capture, quickly reconsiders when he learns from Amoeba, who's spotting some new threats, about Rofu's return. After meeting Frida, Rei hears a cry in the distance and finds a girl protecting her sister. So he logically tears off her clothes and then kills the assailants. Nice going, Rei. The girl is revealed to be one of Ava's attendants, and upon seeing Yu, reveals that she was actually Ava's adopted sister. So yeah, she cross-dressed on top of her cross-dressing, making her a reverse trap, which I find more hilarious than anything. We learn about both her and Ava's past and what Ava did to build the city, where she brought up women to protect them. After her encounter with Yu, who lost her mother and wishes to return inside her, Ava formed the Valkyries and fortified the city to protect the women, turning it into what it is currently. As Yu wanders the streets, she comes upon the execution grounds where the Valkyries are. Flashing back to her childhood, we see a young Yu meet an injured Frida, where they have some cute banter with one another. Yu talks to Frida about strength, with Yu wanting brute strength to be able to protect themselves, while Frida talks about a different kind of strength. Though it is weird upon first reading that Yu was shocked that the Valkyries would be executed when she allowed Zan to attack, it's probably due to her strength means everything mentality, and that she thinks that if they got killed, it was due to them being weak. However, now we can see Yu being clearly shaken with the execution that is arriving soon. We get a moment where we see her break down due to being too weak to interfere with the execution, before Rei appears to save the day. Rei says his classic "I have a soft spot for women who cry" and confronts Zan, who sends out bootleg Jackal and Devil Rebirth. After they take the Valkyries hostage, Rei starts taking a lot of damage, causing Yu to step in and save him back, allowing for Rei to easily dispatch the two. Rei and Zan then begin a brief scuffle where Zan loses his clothes and his stash. Before Rei could take him out, Zan gets swatted aside. The person who did it turns out to be the mysterious man from before, Rima, who has my favorite original design in the Gaiden. Rima's design is really badass, and while his personality isn't that original in manga, it's serviceable for his role as a rival to Rei. And I do like the battle-hungry rival character archetype. I also like his assistant Ran, though she doesn't really do much except deliver exposition. She just has a neat design. Rima reveals that Zan was actually serving Yuda and was trying to open Asgarsul's defenses for his main force to invade the city. While this is happening, Rima goads Rei into fighting him by threatening Rei's throne of most clothes ripped off in one story using Yu, to which Rei responds by tearing off Rima's own clothes, and his chest too, but that's less important. There's also a small moment before the fight where Yu thanks Rei only to be dropped like a cement block, which I found hilarious. The ensuing battle is probably my favorite in the story, as it is extremely well panelled and drawn, with the two being evenly matched, though Rima does control a good portion of the bout. Rima is revealed to be a modified superhuman weapon created before the nuclear bombs went off. He possesses incredible strength matching Rei in the fight and has incredible regeneration, allowing him to survive fatal blows by Rei. With Rei's defeat imminent, Yu tries to offer a body to Rima, asking him to spare Rei. But before Rei could get back in, the fight is interrupted by Rofu. After pulling a Frieza by calling Rima a monkey, Rofu immediately blows him away with just his raw aura. It is revealed that Rima had previously challenged Rofu and was unable to land a hit, and received a scar on his back, in the same shape as the one on Eva. With the mystery now solved, we spend the next part of the story building up Rofu as an unstoppable force of nature. Using Toki, he could easily push away Rima and Rei and utterly slaughtered Yuda's forces without even breaking a sweat, before proclaiming himself to be the strongest of Nanto. He even keeps Yuda alive to serve as a messenger to Souther. Rofu and his techniques are often depicted as monstrous during this rampage, which sets him apart from the other ambition-driven villains in the series, like Rao and Souther, who take pride in their respective martial arts. Rofu's style is a far cry from the elegance of Nanto's Suichoken, as he focuses more on the violent aspect, as Rei notes. Also on a side note, why are there so many characters whose names start with R? After the battle, Yu brings Frida, while posing of course, to Rei so that she could apologize to him for her initial accusation. Not wanting to involve Rei with the city anymore, Yu banishes him so that he could search for his sister. And because we went a whole 2 chapters without fan service, here is the obligatory bathhouse scene where Yu gets jealous of Frida's 2 Valkyries. But the scene does contain a bit of foreshadowing, so it's plot-relevant fan service.
My favorite.
We cut back to Yuda grabbing an Uber driven by Souther's men to join with the other Nanto practitioners for a discussion on Rofu. All the remaining Nanto Rokuseiken members appear, and we finally get to see Souther as well as Rihaku, standing in for the general, make their appearance in the manga. Ryuro from Rei Gaiden also appears, which is a pretty neat tie-in to that series. Also, one detail I appreciate here is that this is the only time in the series that we get to see Sin and the general be in close proximity, with Sin reacting every time the general is mentioned, which is something the author could have easily left out, but its addition is a welcomed one. Back in Ascaso, Yu now has a new outfit that I'm not really a fan of, and we get a cool moment between her and Frida where she asks Yu to follow her love for Rei after Eva's funeral, leading to the semi-final arc of the story. While the funeral is taking place, Rei gets let out of Ascaso by Rofu's men, so that he could take out the Valkyries and Yu without his interruption. Rei is confronted by Zan, who is holding Irie hostage. Of course, we as an audience know that this is not her since they only meet again in the main series, but Rei doesn't know this. Thankfully, this scene isn't drawn out too long as Su comes in to save the day, allowing Rei to use Sentient Gun Hazan, which seems to be the previously unnamed move that he used against Kenshiro. Su convinces Rei to return to Ascaso, and also mentions how his son used to play with Irie, which is a pretty cool addition to their characters and gives Su more of a connection to Rei other than a mere mention in the main series. While this is going on, Frida manages to outsmart Rofu's outsmarting and starts tearing through his forces. Not to believe Rei no-diffed her initially. She challenges him to a duel, which even Yu knows is a death sentence for her. However, Rima arrives just in time to provide her with a weapon and give her an amp. And I have to say, I prefer this design more due to how raw she looks. She pulls an Ito Itosai by telling Rofu to get off the horse since she doesn't want to hurt it, to which he attempts to pull a Rao, though not as effectively. She casually bisects the horse and is even fast enough to outspeed Rofu and create after images. However, the true fight begins when Rima joins in, and the two are revealed to be brothers in arms. This was a pretty awesome reveal, with Frida looking a lot cooler in her younger years. The two of them were pretty feared in the early years post the war, similar to the God's Land characters in early Hokuto. The two of them had initially tried to attack Ascaso, but were helpless against Eva's makeover and her HM05 flash. Back in the present, Rei arrives only to find Frida kneeling beside a freshly donated Rima who took a hit to protect Yu, who tried to protect them. Unjoking for a moment, the scene where his blood splatters on her face is honestly a really well done panel, as we get to see her despair as she was powerless to protect her guards who ended up saving her. We learn a bit more of Rofu's past, about his hatred of women and how Rinrei was able to scar him before he took her life. It is also revealed that Yu can see into people's past and has some clairvoyance like her sister, which saves Yu from needing to narrate to her. Wearing the dress Eva once showed her, Yu and Rofu move to the final battleground, the Nanto Seitoden, reminiscent of the final battleground between Rao and Kenshiro. The other 5 Nanto masters, and even Rao himself, have also gathered to witness the battle for succession. Rofu proclaims before them of his strength coming from his anger and hate, only for Yu to counter his statement by saying that strength comes from love. tying with the main theme of the series. And after saying farewell to Rima and Frida, Rei arrives here for his final battle with his master. However, even with the high ground, Rei's techniques are still inferior to Rofu's, which is supposedly due to Rofu's fist being tinged with hate. Rofu starts goading Rei like he's a Sith Lord by telling him what atrocities he committed, including confessing to being behind Iris kidnapping. In an almost beastly state, Rei begins attacking Rofu and deals heavy damage to the surroundings, even slicing up a building-sized stone wall, if you want to use this for power scaling. This is in stark contrast to the scene in the original it is referencing, with the display disgusting Yuda, who leaves promptly, and you even noting how Rei isn't using his Nanto Suichoken anymore. However, Rofu still overpowers Rei even with his anger boost. But before Rofu could land a finishing blow, Yu stabs him and snaps Rei out of his feral state. Rei gets an amp due to his Star of Justice and carries Yu out of Rofu's way. With this, both Rei and Yu were able to understand the strength gained by fighting for others' sake, and due to this, Rei was able to replicate Rinrei's movements and avoid Rofu's fist, which has a similar tone to the Musou Tensei scene in the original. Shu, Karen, and interestingly enough, Sada were able to recognize that this was Rinrei's movement. Rofu begins beating Rei up again and reveals how his final match with Rinrei went, with Rofu donutting her after receiving his scar and the roof caving in, though he doesn't remember actually doing it. He proclaims that his fist has no need for love, only for you to point out that his fist has been tinged with love, which he knows since he saw into his heart earlier. Is it just me, or is Yu low-key carrying Rei throughout this fight? Rei also confesses to Rofu how much Rinrei had talked about him, which causes Rofu to start reconsidering his view on love. Meanwhile, in the peanut gallery, Vao starts to leave with Karen as he's seen enough, and the other Nanto warriors follow suit. The general mentions how Rei will grow from this fight, and we get confirmation that they have future sight like in Rei Gaiden. Rofu prepares to use the suicidal Nanto Suichoken move that Rei attempted on Vao, and reminder, Vao already left at this point, so he still first saw this technique then. With Yu screaming his name, Rei manages to use his secret technique, the one he will use in the future on Yuda, and soundly defeats Rofu. Rofu reveals to Yu about his motive for killing Ava, to serve as motivation for Rei to eventually awaken his Star of Justice, since Ava has the same stand as the General. Rofu reflects on how Rinrei had saved his life by shielding him from the rubble, and he confesses to Rei that he actually wanted him to surpass both of his masters. With this, he also confesses that he had lied to Rei about Irie and that he was proud of how strong Rei had become. Rei takes Yu near Asgazu before they say farewell, the two of them now realizing the destiny they must pursue, as Queen of Asgazu and Kenshiro's boyfriend, ally, though not without one final close there from Rei on Yu. Now, what I feel this manga does well in is its characterization and art. As I mentioned, Yu is probably the best character, not just in this manga, but out of every non-canon Fist of the North Star material. Yu just bounces off of Rei extremely well, contrasting his more stoic personality and dry humor with her more upbeat and snarky personality, as well as a penchant for cross-dressing. Yu has a lot of great moments in this manga as well as the best expression. I also really like her design and how any shot with her and another character just looks like they are posing for an album. And Yu is a constant help to Rei in this, unlike Bat and Rin who had to grow up first. And she acts as the anchor to prevent Rei from becoming heartless. One of the biggest reasons I like her is her growth as a character. She started as someone who only looked out for herself and valued strength above all else, hating her own weakness, which was why she was willing to betray the Valkyries and stay with Rei, which is a neat parallel to Rei's own character arc. However, after feeling helpless when she couldn't save Frida on her own, she asked Rei for help. Through this, she learns to accept her own weakness and rely on the strength of others in order to fulfill her role as Queen of Asgazu. You'll also notice throughout the video the art style of the manga, which is very distinct from the 80s style design of the original. I really enjoyed the art style change for the returning characters. Rei looks great in most of the panels and they nailed his graceful movements. Salza, Yuria, Yuda, the Last General, and Shin all look similar to their original design, and Amoeba is kinda ripped out in this. However, not all of them look good. Shu and young Yuda do look kinda weird in this. The original characters all look great, with Rima and Rofu being my favorites in terms of design. Rima looking really cool and Rofu being downright terrifying in many panels. Frida's original design is alright, but I actually found the other Valkyries look cooler than her Dollar Store Francis Drake design. The background art in this is also really great and gives the city a very grand yet dangerous vibe, even if we don't explore too much of Asgarsul in order to focus more on the characters. We get a pretty good sense of how the city operates as well as its formation. This manga also has some of my favorite cover pages out of all the Gaiden, and the fight scenes are really well drawn in this, with some great paneling and artwork to emphasize the impact of a hit or the grace of a character. This whole manga in fact feels very much like a love letter to Tetsuo Hara's work, and that goes for the rest of the Gaidens too. Albeit, this is a very horny love letter. Yeah, you've read the title, seen the thumbnail, and I've been pointing it out this whole time. This manga is infamous among the Gaidens for being extremely fanservice-y. Pretty much every female character gets fanservice in this, and half of it is due to Rei. Everyone jokes about how Kenshiro always makes his shirt explode in every fight. Rei does the opposite in this. He slices apart everyone else's clothes. It's a wonder how Kenshiro's shirt survived while they were within a 10-meter radius of each other when they first met, but I digress. There is a lot of nudity in this, and yeah, a lot of them are very much unnecessary. And even ignoring the nudity, the amount of booba here is ridiculously high, especially when compared to the main series. However, playing devil's advocate here, the women here have autonomy over their own body, being displayed as a sign of strength or even nobility at times, and plays into one of the themes of the manga. And any non-consensual advances are immediately dealt with and treated seriously. The men are also not immune to it. I never expected to see Rei's nut face, so it goes both ways. It also does fit in with the setting of Fist of the North Star. However, I still find the fanservice very obnoxious, and I can understand if it turns some people off from the manga. The theme of ambition versus love is a staple in the series, fighting for oneself versus fighting for others. This is something that Rei Gaiden does the best out of all the Gaiden. The main villain, Rofu, serves as the one representing ambition, wanting to be the greatest of the Nanto warriors, abandoning the gracefulness of Nanto Suichoken in pursuit of his own fist. He serves as the foil to Rei, who he tries to lead down the same path of losing the grace in his technique. As previously mentioned, Rofu and his techniques are often depicted as monstrous, which sets him apart from the other ambition-driven villains in the series like Rao and Shaza, who do take pride in their respective style. The new side characters are also really fun in this, especially when compared with the other Gaidens who focus more on the main series characters. Brothers Berserk is the most standout here and serves as another fun twist in the story. I genuinely didn't expect Frida to be a modified human like Rima, or that they were once partners. Rima in particular is a cool new character, and I kind of wish we saw more of him, as most of the scenes he's in are some of the best in the Gaiden. Even with the main series characters, despite not being the main focus of the story, they are still well utilized in this and don't feel wasted. All of them act in character and even have some new details added purely as fan service, like Shin reacting to the last general. Rao and Sada also act pretty in line with their characters, as they don't really see Rofu as any threat to their power. However, this attention to the characters also plays to the biggest problem in this, Rei's development. Rei develops a little too much for this part of the story, to the point where he seems to do a character reset during his character introduction in the main series. Rei at the end of this is more similar to his post-Fang Clan appearance rather than his introduction appearance. Otherwise, this would have been the perfect prequel story for Rei, since he doesn't have much backstory in the main series other than the Yuda flashback. However, it is still a small gripe in what is otherwise a great story that I highly recommend checking out. With a great art style, great characters, a good setting, and a lot of fan service both for fans and horny teens alike, Sokoku no Garo is either my second or third favorite Gaiden, trading places with Jaki Gaiden depending on how I'm feeling that day. That is a must-read for Hokuto no Ken fans. Right now there isn't an official release and just fan translations, but with the release of the official Fist of the North Star volumes by Viz, I hope that we eventually get official translations of both the Gaidens and Fist of the Blue Sky. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like or dislike it if you didn't. The engagement really helps me out and helps to get the word out on the Fist of the North Star series. Also, consider subscribing for more anime and manga content, which may include more videos on the other Gaidens in the future. This is Nanto signing out.